Good day everyone, welcome to another experience and impressions video. And today's topic, Dragon Age 2. How should I put my thoughts on this game? On the technical level, Dragon Age 2 seems to be a step up from Origins. However, in terms of story, I felt it's not to the level of Origins, but still quite enjoyable. My biggest disappointment has been in the gameplay loops and systems. I don't want to say it's a bad game, I did enjoy the playthrough, but there are some points that felt like a step down from Origins. Let's start, as usual, with the context. The game is an action RPG released in 2011, developed, like the predecessor, by BioWare and published by EA. Apparently, EA gave BioWare very little time to complete Origins' sequel, which resulted in crunch at the studio, and cut corners in the game, for example reuse of assets. On the plus side, the game did feature a playable demo before launch, which is something we don't often see anymore. Like in Origins, we explore maps, fight enemies in them, and talk with people to find out more about the world and story. Unlike Origins, the gameplay systems are a bit less RPG and more action-y. So all in all, there is a bit less complexity in the gameplay. For me, this didn't feel right. It was neither good at RPG combat, where the first part was excellent. It also didn't feel like a good form of action combat, since often there was not that much to do with the skills, due to cooldowns and auto-attacks being done automatically. It felt like a weird crossover between the two worlds that didn't excel at any of the parts and thus didn't feel great. One of the gripes I also had is the fact that the zoom level is always pretty close to the selected character. This made it very difficult to view the entire combat scene like you could in Origins. Therefore, it was harder to tactically use companions, and as a result I rarely ever switched over to other companions and just let them fight with their AI priority list. In terms of character progression, I first started out with a sword and board warrior, but the development there felt slow and boring, almost only using auto attacks and passives, so I switched over to a mage character, and that one felt way more powerful. There are a few skill trees for each class where you can put skill points. More advanced skills in the trees have prerequisites and the requirement of total points spent in said tree, making this a limiting factor on how many top tier skills can be obtained. In addition, there are 5 attribute points to spend per level and the gearing. So all in all, pretty basic RPG progression. A bit simplified from its predecessor, because the talents like crafting skills, tactic slots and so on are no longer present. Also less involved is gearing the companions. Apart from the weapon, they have their own armor that increases in stats automatically, based on level and some bonus stats after completion of some quests or store transactions. From a story perspective, I really like the fact that you don't continue on the character from Dragon Age Origins. It just opens the door to telling interesting stories while still having 1 or 2 highlights of the world affected by the previous character. The choices of the first character didn't matter much though. It boiled down to mostly verbal references and no substantial story difference. The whole game plays out in the city of Kirkwall and its surroundings. The city can be visited by day and night, while by day the city is full of life, at night only shady characters there go out on the streets. Because everything is in the same city, the areas start to feel samey after a while. The ending of the story was a blatant setup for a third part, and did leave the world too much in an uncertain state for my taste. Now for presentation aspects. The game ran native 4K without having to install any mods, unlike Dragon Age Origins. And the UI is clean and polished, perhaps a tad too clean. Graphics in general are also a decent step up from Origins, and especially the character animations seemed solid. But beards still look terrible on the characters, and therefore I rolled a female character this time around. One criticism I would have is the repetitiveness of maps. Apart from the big maps, which are unique, the caves and indoor environments are often reused. The caves especially felt samey, since they often just had a bit of different lighting and different passages walled off. In terms of performance, meaning bugs, glitches, crashes and so on, I had this weird issue when sound sometimes didn't work on starting the game. Restarting the game often fixed that, but that was a bit annoying. Other than that, one issue I encountered was that a companion was stuck outside the map and would only join the group after a checkpoint. All in all, performance was solid and I had no absolutely terrible game-breaking stuff like the lost items I had in Origins. And that leaves me with 2 more points to talk about. For one, there are no race choices for the player character, therefore also no origin story as in Dragon Age Origins. This also removed the RPG mechanics of having different strengths and weaknesses on the character depending on race. I didn't mind too much, since I don't like having to roll a certain race because of a bonus and want to select a race mostly for the aesthetics. My speculation would be that this was a result of the story choices, since the story is a bit about the player character's family. Then again, shouldn't have been too hard to swap out the family member models to the corresponding race. So that's perhaps where the fast development aspect comes into play again. The second point is the combat mechanic of how enemies spawn. They spawn in waves and therefore cannot be strategically blocked off with a door, like in Origins, and often end up coming from behind as well. I did not like this at all. If it was done from time to time, as a form of ambush where people jump down from the roofs or something, then okay, but in every single fight, no thank you, I don't need that. That was another big point why the combat didn't click too much with me perhaps, and why I felt the more strategic or tactical approach to combat of the first part was lost. This and the lack of overview of the whole battle area. But all in all, again as I said, it's not a bad game and I enjoyed my playthrough. But for the foreseeable future I won't play through this game again, I guess. And that was my video on Dragon Age 2. I hope you enjoyed. As usual, let me know your experience with the game or ideas for improvements. Also, like and subscribe if you are feeling generous. Thank you very much for watching and see you on the next video.